Welcome to this, the 6th of 10 debates presented by the City Club of Cleveland in this very important 2008 election year. I'm Jan Roller, Vice President of the Board of Directors of the City Club. The City Club has a long and proud history of hosting debates for public office. Whether the race is perceived by the pollsters to be close, or whether the pundits consider it high profile, the City Club of Cleveland provides an opportunity for those interested in their government to learn more about the issues and candidates. We think this is especially important for these very important races for the Ohio Supreme Court. And here at the City Club, we go face to face, in person and in depth. And yes, you, the audience, and the voters will get to ask questions. Many thanks to those of you who are here, watching and listening to the podcasts and webcasts. 60 minutes will go by very quickly, so let's proceed. We are delighted to have as our moderator for today's debate, Geoff Mearns, the Dean of the Cleveland State University, Cleveland Marshall College of Law. Dean Mearns has been a partner in the Cleveland offices of two prominent law firms, Baker Hostetler and Thompson Hine. Prior to entering private practice in 1998, Dean Mearns had a distinguished career as a prosecutor with the United States Department of Justice, including service as Assistant United States Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. Geoff?
Thank you, Jan, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm delighted to welcome you here for this important debate. And I'm particularly pleased that we have some students from Shaw High School here, so we're glad that you're with us here today. As you know, this is a debate between two candidates for the Ohio Supreme Court. In the state of Ohio, we elect our judges, and these judicial officers at all levels of the judiciary are entrusted with a great responsibility to make important decisions that affect all of us. They affect our liberty, our finances, our lives, and our constitutional rights. And the most powerful members of the Ohio judiciary are the 7 justices of the Ohio Supreme Court. While this court only resolves a relatively small number of disputes compared to the large volume of cases that are handled by the trial courts and the appellate courts, the decisions of this Ohio Supreme Court affect all of us, and the impact of those decisions can be felt for many years. Today, 2 candidates for one of the 7 seats on this court are here to speak to you and to answer your questions. And before we begin, let me go through the rules of the debate. At the outset, each candidate has a total of 10 minutes for both an opening statement and a rebuttal. It is the candidate's choice as to how he or she will divide the time. So we'll hear from each candidate twice in this opening segment, with a total of 10 minutes for each. After opening and rebuttal, we will move to questions from you, our audience, and then I will pose a closing question for the candidates this afternoon. The candidates today are Evelyn Stratton. Justice Stratton is currently serving as an Ohio Supreme Court justice. Prior to her appointment to the Supreme Court in 1996, she was a judge in the Franklin County Common Pleas Court. She was elected to a second term in the Ohio Supreme Court in 2002, and is presently running for a third 6-year term this year. Her opponent is Peter Sikora, who is a judge of the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court in the Juvenile Division, where he has served for 19 years. Judge Sikora was elected to the Board of Directors of the Ohio Association of Juvenile and Family Court Judges in 2002, and is currently president of the association. So before we begin, let me welcome you all and say how pleased we are to have you here today. Now, I know some of you are here because you support one candidate or the other, and we're glad that you're here, but we would also hope that you'll refrain from unnecessary applause because it will distract all of us from their presentation. So thank you for your cooperation in that regard. So with those rules and that request, why don't we begin? The order of presentation was determined by a drawing just a few minutes ago, and Justice Stratton will present first. Justice Stratton.
Thank you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to meet with all of you and to share a little bit about our backgrounds. Supreme Court races are sort of way down on the totem pole. They don't get much attention, yet we can make decisions that affect so dramatically every aspect of your life in Ohio by the rulings that we make. So therefore, they are some of the most important races that you will vote on that will affect your lives directly. My background is very different. I was born and raised in Thailand. I lived my first 18 years overseas. My parents were missionaries who went out to Thailand in 1950. I was born in Bangkok and lived my first 6 years along the Mekong River in a little village called Nong Khai. I had a pretty typical missionary upbringing. I swung on vines, I rode on elephants, I played in the dirt, things my kids do on video games. But it really was a wonderful upbringing, and we didn't have much. We didn't have running water, electricity, or things like that initially, but since nobody else had them, I never felt deprived by contrast. But when I was 6 years old, my life changed very dramatically because I was sent to a mission-run boarding school in South Vietnam. I was away from my parents for 9 months out of each year, and when you're 6 years old, you really have no idea how long 9 months will be. The boarding school was in the middle of the Vietnam War, and so the school evacuated. My parents pulled me out early. The school evacuated, moved to Malaysia, where I rejoined them, and I was there for my last 3 years of high school. So I had a unique opportunity to grow up in 3 different countries where you don't have freedom of speech or freedom of religion or freedom of press. And what a great background and training that was for the job that I have now, where I have to look at those rights, those constitutional freedoms and responsibilities that we have. And it sure gives me an enormous background to weigh those privileges. And I feel so very fortunate to be in this country where we take these rights so for granted. I came back when I was 18. I had $500. I hardly knew a soul. But I was able to put myself through college and law school, eventually moved to Franklin County, Ohio, and was the first woman elected to the Franklin County bench in Franklin County. I was there for 5 years before they elected the second woman, but I thought I had made some progress when my son was 4 years old one night, and I was putting him to bed, and he said, "Mom, when guys grow up, can they become judges too?" And I assured him that, yes, in fact, they could. As a judge on the bench, I became very involved in a lot of reforms. Even before I became a judge, I was very involved in adoption reforms. I became a member of the Dave Thomas Adoption Foundation Board. We focus on abused and neglected children who are lost in foster care drift, and many of the reforms Judge Sikora and I agree on need to be done to make lives better for these children. I also led a statewide effort to increase the time for adoption appeals. We had a case out of Columbiana County that took 43 months for the case to be decided by the appellate court. So I wrote a rule that Ohio adopted that gave us 30 days from hearing the oral argument to decide the case. And then I led a national effort that for 2 years, and that end of the national effort, 43 states had adopted expedited adoption appeals. About 7 years ago, I started becoming very interested in issues of mental health reform, and I started working on trying to establish mental health dockets, which are a better way to treat people who have mental health issues. Ohio now leads the country also in medical health, in mental health efforts and mental health dockets, and I'm very proud of the efforts, and I hope to continue my work both state and nationally on mental health reforms. I have been on the bench for 12 years now. The people of Ohio have re-elected me twice, and I hope they will return me to the bench for a third time. Of all the candidates running for the office, I am the only one to receive a highly recommended from the State Bar Association. I am the only candidate to receive 3 excellents from the Cleveland Bar Associations and 1 good preferred from the Cleveland, 3 different Cleveland Bar Associations. I've been endorsed by Cleveland firefighters and by the Cleveland Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, Cleveland Police, and I'm very proud of those endorsements. I hope to be able to continue my work in that regard after elected, especially focusing on veterans issues. The veterans of Ohio that are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan have huge mental health problems, and we are trying to incorporate them into our mental health dockets and our drug courts that we have. And I've been invited to Washington in December to make a presentation to the Veterans Administration employees, about 100 of them, to teach them how we do this in Ohio and how we can better serve the needs of our veterans. Some of them are physical needs. Some of them have traumatic brain injury caused by shrapnel and explosions, and otherwise they look like mental health issues, but they really have a physical cause, and others have physical injuries.